Hi and welcome back to the channel. And Tirana, yes or no? Tirana, yes or no? And I've been back a few days now. I was hoping to do the video actually at the airport in Tirana before I left, but yeah, it just didn't happen. It didn't happen for lots of different reasons. So here I am with my conclusions of Tirana, and a definite yes. Another epic trip, and I think there will be a theme running through most of my trips. I'll always just call them epic, because it really was, you know, for so many different reasons. And I've kind of put a little bit of a list here. So I'm just going to go through my list and just tell you why, why Tirana would be a really good place to go and visit. The accommodation was fantastic, and I don't normally, would recommend sort of places, but I stayed in the Red Goat Hostel. It's really cheap, lovely breakfast, pretty close to everywhere. Tirana's quite a small place, so yeah, you can get to everywhere that you need from there, and it's just a really chilled out place run by a lovely woman. I was lucky when I was there for 2 nights, or, I had a couple of guys staying in the room, a really nice Spanish guy, an Italian guy who gave me some really good tips about places to go and visit in southern Italy, which I've kind of been exploring. And an Australian guy who was just on this epic travel sort of, around the world, basically. So yeah, it's a really nice, and it was that kind of place where you instantly sort of like tap into the sort of, the traveller scene, if you like, sharing experience, places to go, different, different places, so that was really good. So, and I'll put a link in the chat, or I'll put a link in, to the accommodation, which I got off booking.com, so I can highly recommend it. And I think it was almost like 10 out of 10 for its feedback. So Tirana itself, what, I was kind of pleasant. I didn't really know what to expect, if I was honest. I kind of knew it would be good. I didn't think it would be anything but that, but I was really pleasantly surprised, and it kind of reminded me of a kind of a bit like sort of Athens or Lisbon, which are major cities, but are actually quite sort of quite chilled out. There's cars obviously going around, but you don't get that stressy vibe. Like if you're in London, it's just chaos, isn't it? And New York and other places like that. It's just not like that at all. And I was really surprised how green it was. Very good, everywhere, in the major streets were just tree lined there. And one thing which was really quite surprising was the cycle infrastructure. Everywhere there was a cycle lane in the middle of in the busy roads. They had made a cycle path in the middle of the road, which was sort of sectioned off, so you're sort of traffic free cycling. Which I just thought was really excellent, So that kind of, with just, like trees everywhere, and was just fantastic, and so many cafes and food places to eat, just sport for choice, really sport for choice. And one thing that I was quite interested in, it's got a really modern feel, and I liked on a lot of the buildings, and fairly regularly you would see these huge murals, really beautiful murals, on the side of buildings, and there wasn't a real trace of it was a long time ago now, wasn't it, but of the sort of post-war, old regime sort of grey sort of buildings or anything like that at all. There was a real modern twist to everything, in some of the architecture, the colours of things. It was very beautiful, very beautiful. And one thing that was kind of really noticeable, that it was really quite flat. Can't ever remember walking around the centre, walking up a steep hill, or it was pretty pan flat, which was really nice. And though I didn't hire a bike, and as I mentioned, in terms of sort of cycling, there was so many people cycling about on e-bikes and those e-scooter things, which you could hire, but sort of Tirana was quite walkable. I didn't really feel like I had to hire a bike, though I would have done, if I wanted to. So yeah, that was my take on Tirana, and I guess it's worth mentioning the people as well. Really friendly, really helpful, and I noticed overall, that it was quite a young vibe. Really, there was quite a lot of youngish people. So yeah, it just had that energy of a kind of young modern city. Places to go. Well, went to some really nice places, and I guess just as an overview, the centre of Tirana is Skanderberg Square, huge square. And that's the kind of central focus, I guess. There's a mosque, the opera, all the kind of roads go off Skanderberg Square, and yeah, it was just a nice place to hang out and people watch, particularly on a Sunday, where obviously most of the people have the day off, and to see people just kind of chilling out. I wouldn't ever go anywhere that had an archaeological museum and not go, because that's my happy place. And there was a really good archaeological museum, and one of the things about the museum, that there was nothing sort of labelled or anything like that, so it was a bit difficult to get a sort of sense of some of the history, but most of it was fairly evident. And a couple of my favourite parts, there was a fantastic Greek helmet, old helmet, and there was a kind of bust of Hadrian from Hadrian's Wall fame, so it just goes, how vast and it was, the Roman Empire, and other things that I saw. One, it was called Bunked Art 2, and there was a Bunked Art 1 as well, which I didn't go to, but and that was a real sobering museum about how things used to be. And yeah, it was quite challenging at moments, and you kind of think how lucky, as much as I don't defend this country too much, but let's not get into politics. But there were some of the things that I would probably write on Facebook would certainly get me arrested and thrown into a concentration camp or worse. I know it's a kind of different era, but there was lots of stuff in there which was quite challenging, but nonetheless kind of one of those things sort of important to go and look at. The mosque in Skanderberg Square was really beautiful and had a lot of history. That was one of the, in Ottoman times, before kind of like Tirana was Tirana, if you like, that was one of the first buildings that was there, and sadly, of all that, I was there for 6 days. And sadly, I never got the opportunity to go in there, just because there was only certain days you could go in, and I sort of crisscrossed a few times, and it just never happened. But you know what? It was fine, and I'd have liked to have gone in there, and I did see some photos. So I kind of, even though I didn't go, I could kind of recommend to do that. couple of other places. Tirana Castle, which is this kind of, I don't know, how do you describe it? I mean, it's not really a castle, it's just this kind of dome, if you like, which you can walk up from different ways up to it. And at the top is just a fantastic view of the city. And one of the things which was really interesting about the city was that pretty much all the way around it, you could see the hills and mountains surrounding Tirana, you know, so it was very beautiful. And I guess my favourite place of all, and I spent, well, I kind of spent 2 days there altogether, was Tirana Park, which on one day I just took me a day really of a gentle stroll round the lake. And that took probably about 4 or 5 hours with lots of stops, and but it was beautiful, you know, and there was parts of it that were incredibly picturesque and very, very relaxing. It didn't really feel like you were in a city at all, you know, sort of birds twittering away, very, very peaceful. So, and yeah, on my on my final day, I spent the day in the park as well. It was beautiful and sunny, and I just spent the day chilling out, doing videos, which I'll mention a bit later. So Tirana Park is a must, I would say. You know, if you just want to chill out, it's fab. I'd kind of mentioned the people really being friendly. One of my other highlights, I guess, was, you know, I love the serendipitous nature of just how you just find what you're meant to find. And I was speaking to a friend beforehand, before I left, and, you know, we're just sort of saying, you know, Mother Teresa was born in Tirana. And I kind of expected to find a few things there, but I kind of found them by accident, and it was really lovely. I spent one day, as I do, I just like to get lost. Was walking along, and I'll find the name, and when I put this video on, I'll also attach some pictures. And just on the right hand side of this was the church, Mother Teresa's church, with this beautiful it was just beautiful, you know, really nice place. And, you know, I'm not religious, but it was just beautiful to go inside, and it was very, very peaceful. Had quite an ethereal sort of atmosphere in there, so I could definitely recommend that. And then after leaving there, getting further lost down these tiny little back streets, because that's what I like to do, because I always kind of think that you'll find, you know, a bit more of the real place, if you like, you know. And I was walking back to the hostel, and I just got lost down these lanes, and I came across this street, and there were these lovely, again, I'll put some photos in, just these beautiful sayings, you know, and I thought, yeah, you know, well, that's, you know, really interesting it was there. And then, blow me, just a little bit, 50 yards up the road, it was the house that belonged to Mother Teresa's family. And so that was fantastic, you know, just to find that by complete accident. And other bits to just talk about money. Now it said in the hostel that she likes to be paid in euros, which is fine, and I took euros, and I wasn't sure whether to take any or try and get some Albanian leg, but I didn't. And but one of the problems that I found was that a lot of places don't take cards. It's very cash based, and the places that you think might take a card, like I went to this lovely cafe restaurant to do a bit of people watching and had a lovely meal, and I just kind of thought, you know, a place like this, and, you know, sounds awful, but how people were dressed, just the atmosphere of the place, surely they would take cards. And the guy came up and asked me to pay because he was finishing his shift, and I said, yeah, pay by card. And he said, no, it's cash only, or and so I had to leg it across the street. Thank goodness there was a cash point there, and get out some Albanian money, and that happened a couple of times. So I ended up having to ask, do you take cards before buying anything? Because it was getting a bit embarrassing. So yeah, if you go to Tirana, just be mindful maybe that it's worth, they do like euros, but one of the things, it's so cheap there. And I it planned actually to cook my own food in the hostel, but didn't, because the food was fantastic and very cheap. I think on the first night I found this place on the corner of a street and bought a pizza. I think it was about £3.50 for this beautiful pizza, and yeah, the food was fantastic. So I didn't cook at all for myself. Breakfast was included in the place, and that sort of set me up for most of the day, really, for a few coffees, and then I would eat in the evening. So that's my view on Tirana. Hit or miss, definitely a hit. Epic place, well worth going. I mean, I ended up there had 6 days there in effect, because my flight landed at 9 in the morning, and then when I flew out, my flight was at 11 o'clock in the evening, and the flight got slightly delayed, but that was okay. And I spent very little while I was there. And I'll share this with you on my journey of just trying to do video to tell a story. And I took some lovely videos and probably about 2 hours worth, which was far too much, so I would have condensed it, of course. And then when I got home, I tried to upload it, and the SD card was corrupted and I lost all the video. So I was a bit kind of annoyed, but do you know what? It's all a learning curve, because I'd read some stuff about GoPro and how to take the video off your camera, and it was, it was basically saying that you need to get a device, you need to take the SD card out of the GoPro, but that was nonsense. And I've basically learned that all you need to do is attach the lead that comes with the GoPro into your device, and it downloads perfectly. So a big steep learning curve from me there. Mindful that I'm prattling on a bit, so I'll stop. What I will do in the absence of video, I'll put this one up, and my skills are getting slightly better, that I'll attach while I'm talking about a certain place. I'll put some photographs of it and just sort of label it so you kind of know what I'm talking about. And next up for me is going to be Rotterdam in about 7 weeks' time. And again, this is going to be a slightly different one. I'm going there for like a yeah, I'm going to be around a lot of friends there, and I'll be going to a convention of sorts. So be very different experience, and yeah, hopefully I'll get some friends if they're into coming on, coming online and chatting. And it's a shame, because I've met a couple of lovely people and chatted them for a short while, and they were happy to chat, and tell me about, Tirana and what it was like. But again, sadly, they're lost. But I'll be uploading this in a few days while I, add some photos and stuff like that. And as always, please like and subscribe. I am going to be going back and putting a lot of camera edits, to music. I've already put a few on. So please have a look at those, and again, please like if you like them. And what's always really important to me is just, comments are fantastic for me. Really like to hear your comments. any questions that you have, anything like that will be just really good for me. So look out for those. I plan to do some other little videos of some of my favourite places around where I live in Frome. So look out for those. I'll be putting those on alongside some of the places that I've been. One that I'd like to share with you is Pompeii, because that was an absolutely epic place. And yeah, I'm not sure about the others, so, but please look out for them. And as always, just wishing you all a safe and wonderful few weeks, and be safe.